The jungle was thick and dark, and every step felt like a struggle. Sergeant Jack Mason had been walking for hours, his boots heavy with mud. Sweat dripped down his face, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. He was alone on this strange alien planet, and his supplies were almost gone. His backpack, once full of food and water, was now nearly empty. The rations wouldn't last another day. Jack had been sent on a mission to explore this world, but something went wrong. His ship crashed, and he ended up stranded. The planet was strange, with tall, twisted trees and plants that glowed in the dark. The air was thick and humid, and there was always a strange noise in the distance, like something was watching him. Jack didn't like it. He felt like he was being hunted. But he had no choice. He had to find food and shelter. He had to survive. As Jack moved deeper into the jungle, he spotted something unusual. Through the thick leaves, he saw a small trail, almost hidden. It wasn't a natural path. It was too straight, too neat. Someone had made it. Curious, and with no better options, he decided to follow the trail. Maybe it would lead him to water, or even to other people. The path twisted and turned, leading him deeper into the jungle. After walking for what felt like hours, Jack finally reached a clearing. He froze. In front of him, there was a village. But it was unlike any village he had seen before. The houses were made of wood and stone, and they were built into the trees, with ropes and bridges connecting them high above the ground. It looked almost like a hidden fortress, blending perfectly with the jungle. Jack's heart skipped a beat. There were people here. Maybe they could help him. But he couldn't just walk in. He needed to be careful. He didn't know if they were friendly. So he hid behind a large bush and watched. The villagers looked different from humans. They were tall, with smooth, dark blue skin and bright, glowing eyes. Their hair was long and wild, like vines, and their movements were graceful and silent, like shadows. They moved through the village, carrying baskets of fruit and strange tools. They seemed busy, but calm, peaceful, even. As Jack watched, he noticed one of them, a young girl, standing apart from the others. She was sitting on a fallen log, looking out into the jungle. She seemed bored, her legs swinging back and forth as she chewed on a piece of fruit. She had a small, curious smile on her face, like she was waiting for something interesting to happen. Then suddenly, she turned her head and looked straight at Jack. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He didn't move. He didn't even breathe. But it was too late. She had seen him. For a moment, they just stared at each other, neither moving. Then, to Jack's surprise, the girl smiled wider. She raised her hand and waved, as if she was greeting an old friend. Jack didn't know what to do. He had been ready to hide, maybe even run if he had to, but this was unexpected. The girl didn't seem scared or angry. She seemed curious. Slowly, Jack stepped out from behind the bush, raising his hands to show he wasn't a threat. The girl hopped off the log and walked toward him, her steps light and quick. She stopped a few feet away, tilting her head to one side as she looked him up and down. "You're not from here," she said, her voice soft but clear. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Jack nodded. "No, I'm not." The girl's eyes sparkled. "Are you lost?" Jack hesitated. He didn't know how much he should say, but he was tired, and he needed help. "Yes," he admitted. "My ship crashed. I've been trying to find food and water." The girl's smile faded a little, and she seemed to think for a moment. Then she reached into a pouch on her belt and pulled out a small round fruit. It was bright red, almost glowing. She held it out to him. "Here, eat." Jack looked at the fruit, then back at her. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. The girl shrugged. "You look hungry," she said simply, "and I want to know more about you." Jack hesitated, but his stomach growled, and he took the fruit. It was soft and sweet, and he felt a bit of energy return to his tired body. "Thank you," he said, wiping his mouth. The girl's smile returned. "You're welcome. My name is Rilke," she said. "What's yours?" "Jack," he replied. "Sergeant Jack Mason." Rilke's eyes widened a little at the title. "Sergeant, is that like a warrior?" she asked, sounding impressed. Jack wasn't sure how to answer. "Sort of," he said. "I'm a soldier." Rilke's smile grew even wider. "A soldier? That's interesting. We don't have many soldiers here, just hunters and farmers." Jack looked around the village, then back at Rilke. "Is there a way I can speak to your leader?" he asked. "I need to find a way to get back to my ship." Rilke's smile faded a little, and she glanced back at the village. "Maybe," she said slowly, "but they might not want to help you. They're afraid of strangers." Jack felt a surge of hope, mixed with fear. "Then why are you helping me?" Rilke looked back at him, her eyes serious for the first time. "Because you're different," she said, "and I think you have something we need." Jack didn't understand what she meant, but he knew one thing. This was his chance. He needed to find out more about this village, and maybe, just maybe, he could survive long enough to get back home. A curious watcher, Rilke had always been different from the others in her village. While most of her people stayed within the safety of their homes, she liked to explore. She was curious, always looking for something new, something exciting. She knew every tree, every hidden path, and every quiet corner of the jungle. But today, she had found something she had never seen before: a human. She watched the strange man from her spot behind a thick tree trunk, her eyes wide with curiosity. He was tall and looked strong, but he also seemed tired. His clothes were dirty, and he had a small backpack that seemed almost empty. Rilke could see that he was struggling to walk, but he kept moving, his eyes scanning the area as if he was searching for something. She had heard stories about humans, but she had never seen one before. She wondered what he was doing here. Rilke knew she should have gone back to the village and told the others, but she didn't. She wanted to learn more about him first. She followed him quietly, moving through the jungle as silently as a shadow. The man didn't notice her. He was too focused on finding a way through the thick plants, and he looked so tired that Rilke almost felt sorry for him. After a while, the man stopped. He dropped his backpack on the ground and sat down on a large rock, wiping the sweat from his forehead. He took out a small metal container and opened it, but when he looked inside, his face fell. Rilke could see that there was barely anything left in it. He shook his head, sighed, and put the container back in his bag. She could tell he was hungry, and he didn't have much left to eat. Rilke felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of her wanted to keep watching, to see what he would do next, but another part of her wanted to help. She remembered the fruit she had picked earlier. It was sweet and juicy, and there were plenty of them back in the village. She reached into her pouch and pulled out one of the fruits, looking at it for a moment before making a decision. Slowly, she stepped out from behind the tree and into the open. The man didn't notice her at first, so she cleared her throat softly. His head snapped up, and he stared at her with wide eyes. For a moment, they both just looked at each other, neither moving. Then Rilke smiled and raised her hand, showing him the fruit. The man blinked, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Who are you?" he asked, his voice rough and tired. Rilke took a step closer, still holding the fruit out. "My name is Rilke," she said, her voice gentle. "I live here, in the village. You look hungry." The man hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I am," he admitted. "But why are you helping me?" Rilke thought about that for a moment. She didn't really know the answer herself. Maybe it was because he looked so lost and alone, or maybe it was because she wanted to know more about him. "You're different," she said finally. "I've never seen anyone like you before. I want to know more about you." The man's face softened a little, and he gave a small, tired smile. "I'm Jack," he said. "Sergeant Jack Mason." Rilke's eyes lit up. "Sergeant? What does that mean?" "It means I'm a soldier," Jack explained. "I came here on a mission, but my ship crashed, and now I'm stranded. I've been trying to find food and a way back, but it's been hard." Rilke listened carefully. She didn't understand everything he said, but she could tell he was in trouble. "Why don't you come to my village?" she offered. "Maybe we can help you." Jack's eyes widened in surprise. "You'd really do that?" he asked. "Even though I'm a stranger?" Rilke nodded. "Yes, but I have to warn you, not everyone in the village will be happy to see you. They don't like outsiders very much." Jack hesitated. He didn't want to cause trouble, but he didn't have many options left. "Why are you helping me?" he asked again. "You said your people don't like strangers, but you're not afraid." Rilke smiled. "I'm not like them," she said simply. "I like to learn new things, meet new people. And you seem interesting." Jack couldn't help but chuckle at that. "Well, I don't know how interesting I am, but I'm grateful," he said. "Thank you." Rilke's smile grew wider. "You're welcome." She tossed the fruit to him, and he caught it, looking at it curiously before taking a bite. His eyes lit up as the sweet juice filled his mouth. "This is really good," he said between bites. "What is it?" "It's called lyra fruit," Rilke explained. "It grows all over the jungle. There's plenty of it in the village." Jack finished the fruit quickly, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Thank you, Rilke," he said again. "I haven't eaten anything that good in days." Rilke felt a warm feeling in her chest. She was glad she had decided to approach him. "Do you want more?" she asked. "I can bring you some, or you could come with me." Jack hesitated. He wanted to say yes, but he was also scared. What if the villagers attacked him? What if they didn't want him there? But when he looked at Rilke, he saw only kindness in her eyes. "All right," he said finally. "I'll come with you. But if your people don't want me there, I'll leave." Rilke nodded. "That's fair," she said. "But I think they will listen to me. I'll make sure they understand you're not here to hurt us." Jack stood up, feeling a little stronger after eating. He picked up his backpack and slung it over his shoulder. "Lead the way, then," he said with a smile. Rilke's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know what would happen when they got to the village, but she was excited. She had always wanted to see something new, and now she had found it. As she led Jack through the jungle, she couldn't help but feel that this was the start of something big, something important. For both of them, the offer. Rilke led Jack through the jungle, guiding him along hidden paths that he would never have found on his own. She moved swiftly, like she knew every step by heart. Jack followed, trying to keep up, his mind racing. He still wasn't sure if this was a good idea, but Rilke seemed kind, and he didn't have much of a choice. He needed food, and he needed a plan. As they walked, Jack noticed how the jungle seemed different when he was with her. It was still thick and wild, but it didn't feel as dangerous. Rilke moved through the shadows and the thick plants like she belonged there, and Jack started to relax a little. Maybe he could trust her, even if he wasn't sure yet. After a while, they reached a small stream. Rilke stopped and knelt down, scooping up some water in her hands. "We're almost there," she said, glancing back at him. "But I want to ask you something before we get to the village." Jack felt a small knot form in his stomach. He had a feeling this was important. "What is it?" he asked. Rilke stood up and turned to face him, her eyes serious. "You said you're a soldier," she began. "And you have weapons, right? Like special human weapons." Jack hesitated. He didn't like where this was going. "Yes," he said slowly. "I have a few things, but I'm not sure if they'll work anymore." "Why do you ask?" Rilke bit her lip like she was thinking hard about what to say next. "There's something you should know," she said. "Our village, we're not alone here. There are others, out in the jungle. Some of them aren't friendly." Jack's eyes narrowed. "Others? What do you mean?" "There are creatures," Rilke explained. "They don't look like us, but they're smart. They attack our village sometimes, trying to take our food and supplies. We can fight them off, but it's hard. And I think it's getting worse. Jack listened carefully. He understood now why Rilke seemed so curious, but also a little cautious. She wasn't just looking for a friend. She was looking for help. "And you think I can help you?" he asked. Rilke nodded. "Yes," she said. "I've heard stories about human weapons. I heard they're powerful, and they can do things we can't even imagine. I thought, maybe if I brought you to the village, you could show us one of your weapons. Maybe we could trade." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He had hoped this was just about food, but now it was about something much bigger. "Rilke, I don't think that's a good idea," he said carefully. "The weapons I have, they're not toys. They're dangerous." Rilke's eyes softened, but she didn't back down. "I know they're dangerous," she said, "but we need something, anything, to protect ourselves. If we don't do something, the creatures will keep coming. They'll destroy our village." Jack looked into Rilke's eyes and saw the fear there, mixed with hope. She was desperate, but she was also brave. He understood what it was like to be in a situation where you had to fight to survive. He had been through it many times before. He took a deep breath. "All right," he said finally. "I'll help you. But I need to see the village first, and I need to understand what's going on. I can't just give you a weapon without knowing what it will be used for." Rilke's face lit up with a smile. "Thank you, Jack," she said. "I promise, you'll see. Our village is strong, but we just need a little more help. Maybe with your weapon, we can finally be safe." Jack wasn't sure if he liked the idea of handing over a weapon to someone he barely knew, but he also understood why Rilke was asking. He had seen villages destroyed because they couldn't defend themselves. If he could help her people, maybe it was worth the risk. They continued walking, and after a short while, they reached the edge of the village. Jack's eyes widened as he saw it up close for the first time. The houses were built high up in the trees, connected by bridges and ropes. It looked almost like a hidden fortress. But it was also beautiful, with lanterns hanging from the branches and vines twisting around the wooden beams. Rilke led Jack to a small clearing where a few villagers were gathered, talking quietly. When they saw Rilke with the stranger, they stopped and stared. Jack could feel their eyes on him, and he felt a little nervous. He wasn't sure if they were going to welcome him or throw him out. Rilke stepped forward and spoke to the villagers in a language Jack didn't understand. She spoke quickly, her voice calm but firm. The villagers listened, their faces serious, but they didn't interrupt her. When she finished, they looked at Jack, then back at Rilke, and nodded. Rilke turned to Jack. "They've agreed to let you stay," she said, "but only for a short time. You'll need to show them what you can offer." Jack nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. "I understand," he said, "but I need to be clear about something. I won't give you anything that could make things worse. I'm here to help, not cause more problems." Rilke's expression softened. "I know," she said, "and I promise we won't ask for anything that could hurt us. We just need a way to protect our home." Jack took off his backpack and set it down on the ground. He opened it and pulled out a small, sleek device. It didn't look like much, but he knew how powerful it could be. "This isn't exactly a weapon," he said, "but it's something that might help you. It's a defense tool, something that can create a shield around you. It could protect your village from attacks." Rilke's eyes widened as she looked at the device. "A shield?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. "You mean, like a barrier?" Jack nodded. "Exactly. It won't hurt anyone, but it will keep them out." Rilke looked at the device, then back at Jack. "Will you show us how it works?" she asked. Jack smiled, a little relieved. "Yes," he said. "I'll show you. But first, let's find a safe place to test it." As they prepared to demonstrate the device, Jack couldn't help but wonder if he was doing the right thing. He had only known Rilke for a short time, but he felt like he could trust her. And maybe, just maybe, this strange new world was about to become a little safer because of it. The secret weapon. Jack and Rilke moved to a quieter part of the village, away from the watchful eyes of the other villagers. They found a small clearing surrounded by trees, where the jungle was calm, and the sounds of the village faded into the distance. Jack set down his backpack and carefully pulled out the small device he had shown Rilke earlier. Rilke watched with wide, curious eyes. She had never seen anything like it before. The device was sleek and metallic, about the size of Jack's hand, with a few buttons and a small screen. It didn't look dangerous, but she could tell it was something special. "Is that your secret weapon?" she asked softly, as if afraid to disturb its power. Jack smiled a little. "Not exactly a weapon," he said. "But yes, it's something special. We call it a defense module. It creates a shield, like a barrier, that can protect people from attacks. It's not meant to hurt anyone, just to keep them safe." Rilke nodded, her eyes shining with interest. "Can you show me how it works?" she asked. Jack hesitated. He knew he was taking a risk by showing her this. If the villagers didn't understand what the device did, they might see it as a threat. But he also knew that if he wanted their help, he needed to show them he could offer something in return. "All right," he said, "but we need to be careful. I'll set up a small demonstration, just to show you what it can do." He pressed a few buttons on the device, and it beeped softly. A small blue light appeared on the screen, and Jack placed the device on the ground in the middle of the clearing. "Stand back," he said, motioning for Rilke to move a few steps away. "It won't hurt you, but it's better to be safe." Rilke nodded and stepped back, her heart pounding with excitement. She had heard stories about human technology, but she had never imagined she would get to see it up close. She watched as Jack activated the device, his hands moving quickly and confidently. For a moment, nothing happened, and Rilke wondered if it was broken. But then, slowly, a faint blue glow began to spread out from the device, forming a thin, shimmering barrier around the clearing. Rilke gasped. The barrier was almost invisible, but she could see it if she looked closely. It was like a bubble, surrounding the space around them. She reached out to touch it, but her hand stopped just before it could pass through. "It's solid," she said, amazed. "I can't get through." Jack nodded. "That's the point," he said. "The shield stops anything from getting in or out. It's not very strong, but it's enough to stop small projectiles, like arrows or rocks. If someone tries to attack, the shield will block it." Rilke's eyes were wide with wonder. "Can it cover the whole village?" she asked. "Can it protect everyone?" Jack shook his head. "Not this one," he said. "This is just a small, portable version. It's meant for personal use, to protect one or two people. But if I can figure out how to adapt it, I might be able to make a larger version, something that could cover a bigger area, like part of the village." Rilke's mind was racing. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. A shield that could stop attacks, that could keep the village safe. It was more than she had hoped for. "Jack, this is incredible," she said. "If you can make it work, it could change everything for us. We wouldn't have to be afraid anymore." Jack smiled, but he could see the challenge ahead. "It's not that simple," he said. "I'll need parts, tools, things I don't have, and I'll need time to figure out how to make it bigger. But if your people are willing to help, maybe we can do it together." Rilke's smile faded a little. She knew that convincing the others would not be easy. The village elders were cautious, and they didn't trust outsiders. They would need more than just words to believe in Jack's device. "They'll want to see it work," she said. "They'll need proof." Jack nodded. "I understand. I'll show them what it can do, but I need your help. If you can convince them to give me a chance, I'll do everything I can to make this work." Rilke felt a mix of hope and fear. She wanted to believe in Jack, but she knew how difficult it would be to change the minds of the elders. Still, she had to try. "I'll talk to them," she said, "but you should be ready. They might test you, and they won't go easy." Jack's expression grew serious. "I'm ready," he said. "Whatever they need to see, I'll show them. But I need to ask you something, too. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. and yet you're taking a risk by helping me." Rilke thought for a moment, trying to find the right words. "I'm doing this because I believe in hope," she said. "Our village has been living in fear for too long, always waiting for the next attack. But when I saw you, I thought, maybe things could change. Maybe you could be the one to help us." Jack felt a strange warmth in his chest. It had been a long time since someone had looked at him with that kind of hope. "I'll do my best," he said quietly. "I don't know if I can make everything better, but I'll try." They spent the next hour testing the device, making sure it worked properly. Rilke watched carefully, asking questions and learning how it operated. She knew that when she spoke to the elders, she would need to explain everything, and she wanted to be ready. As the sun began to set, she finally turned to Jack and said, "I think we're ready. I'll take you to see the elders tomorrow." Jack nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. This was it, his chance to prove himself, to show that he could help. But he also knew that if he failed, it might be his last chance. "Thank you, Rilke," he said, "for giving me this opportunity." Rilke smiled, but there was a hint of worry in her eyes. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "We still have a long way to go. But if we work together, maybe we can find a way to keep everyone safe." As they packed up the device and prepared to head back to the village, Jack felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time, he believed that maybe, just maybe, he could make a difference. A risky trade. The next morning, Jack woke up early. The sounds of the jungle filled his ears, and he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today was important. Today, he would meet the elders of Rilke's village and show them the defense module. If they believed in him, he could help keep them safe. But if they didn't, Jack pushed that thought away. He couldn't think like that now. As he prepared for the meeting, Rilke approached him, her expression serious. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice steady. Jack took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied. "Do you think they'll listen?" Rilke nodded, though her eyes showed uncertainty. "They will listen, but they will want proof. We need to show them how the device works and what it can do. If they see it in action, they might trust you." Jack felt his heart race. "I understand. I'll do my best to convince them." He packed the device carefully, making sure it was secure in his backpack. Rilke led him through the village, their path winding through the trees and hanging bridges. Villagers watched them closely, their faces filled with curiosity and caution. When they reached the central gathering place, Jack saw a group of elders seated in a circle. They looked wise and serious, their faces lined with age and experience. Rilke stepped forward and spoke to them in their language, explaining who Jack was and what he could offer. Jack stood off to the side, feeling a little like an outsider. He could see the elders exchanging glances, their expressions unreadable. Rilke finished speaking and turned back to him. "They want to hear from you now," she said. "Show them the device." Jack nodded, trying to calm his nerves. He stepped forward, taking a deep breath. "Hello," he said, his voice steady but slightly nervous. "I'm Jack, and I come from a faraway place. I know you're concerned about the safety of your village. I want to help." One elder, an older woman with silver hair, raised her hand. "How can you help us, human?" she asked, her voice strong. "What is this device you speak of?" Jack pulled the device from his backpack, holding it up for them to see. "This is a defense module. It creates a protective shield to keep you safe from attacks. I can show you how it works." The elders leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the device. Jack activated it, pressing the buttons as he had practiced with Rilke. The soft blue glow appeared again, expanding into a shimmering barrier that surrounded him. The elders gasped, and Jack felt a rush of hope. "This shield will protect you from projectiles," he explained. "If enemies come, they won't be able to get through. It's not perfect, but it will give you time to react and defend yourselves." "Can it protect the whole village?" Another elder asked, his brow furrowed. Not this version, Jack replied. But if I can gather the right materials, I can create a larger one. This will be a start. The elders whispered among themselves, their voices low. Jack could feel his heart pounding. He hoped they understood the importance of what he was offering. Rilke stepped closer, her eyes shining with encouragement. Please, she said to the elders, we need this help. We have been living in fear for too long. Finally, the silver-haired elder spoke again. We will allow you to demonstrate the shield further, she said, but we will also test it. If it fails, you must leave our village. Jack swallowed hard. I understand, he said, determination filling his voice. I'll show you how it works, and I won't let you down. The elders nodded, and Rilke smiled at Jack, her support giving him strength. They moved to a clearing nearby, where the ground was flat and clear of obstacles. Jack set the device down and activated it again. The barrier shimmered to life, surrounding them once more. Now we need to test it, he said. I want to make sure you see how it works. He looked at the villagers gathered around them. Do you have something I can use? A small rock or piece of wood? One of the younger villagers stepped forward, holding a small wooden stick. Jack took it, feeling the weight in his hand. This will do, he said, nodding. I'm going to throw this at the shield. It will show you how strong it is. The villagers watched closely as Jack stepped back a few paces, readying himself. He took a deep breath and threw the stick at the shield. It struck the barrier with a soft thud and bounced harmlessly to the ground. The elders looked surprised, their faces softening. It worked, the silver-haired elder said, her tone changing. It really worked. Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him. Yes, he said, and it can work against arrows, stones, or anything that comes your way. The elders nodded, their expressions more thoughtful now. But what will we trade you for this help? One elder asked, still cautious. You ask for something in return, and we must know what it is. Jack knew this question would come. He had thought about it a lot during his time in the village. I don't want to take anything from you, he said, but I would like your help in gathering materials to make a larger shield. I'll need tools, spare parts, anything you can offer. Together, we can make this village safe. Rilke stood beside him, her eyes bright with hope. We can gather what he needs, she said. We will work together to protect our home. The elders exchanged glances again, and Jack held his breath. Finally, the silver-haired elder spoke. Very well, Jack. If you can prove this device works, and if you can help us, we will provide what you need. But remember, trust must be earned. We will watch closely. Jack nodded, feeling grateful and hopeful. Thank you, he said sincerely. I won't let you down. Together, we can make this work. As they prepared to leave the clearing, Rilke turned to Jack, her expression serious but hopeful. You did well, she said. They listened. Now we must make a plan. Jack smiled back, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. They had taken a step forward, and for the first time, he truly believed they could make a difference together. Yes, let's get started, he replied, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The big surprise. The days that followed were busy and filled with hope. Rilke and Jack worked hard to gather the materials they needed for the larger shield. The villagers were eager to help, and many offered tools, spare parts, and even their skills. Jack felt grateful for their support. It was as if they were all united for a common purpose, to protect their home. One morning, as Jack was organizing the supplies, Rilke approached him with a bright smile. I have a surprise for you, she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Jack looked up, curious. A surprise? What is it? He asked, wondering what she had planned. You've been working so hard, and I wanted to do something special, Rilke said. We have a festival coming up soon, and I thought you should be part of it. It's a way for everyone to celebrate and show appreciation for each other. Jack felt a rush of warmth. He had been so focused on work that he hadn't even thought about the festival. "That sounds amazing. But what can I do?" he asked. "You can help me prepare," Rilke replied. "There are games, music, and food. We need help setting up everything. And you can also show everyone the shield. It would be a great way to show them what you've done." Jack smiled, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had never been part of a festival before, especially not in a village that was so different from his own. "I'd love to help. Let's make it special," he said. As the day of the festival approached, the village buzzed with activity. People decorated the central gathering area with colorful banners and flowers. The scent of delicious food filled the air, making Jack's stomach rumble. He helped Rilke set up tables, arrange the food, and prepare the games. Everyone worked together, laughing and sharing stories. Finally, the day of the festival arrived. The sun shone brightly, and the villagers gathered in the central area, excited to celebrate. Jack felt a sense of joy as he watched everyone come together, their faces filled with happiness. Rilke stood beside him, her eyes shining. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice filled with anticipation. Jack nodded. "Let's do this," he replied. He felt nervous about showing the shield to everyone, but he also wanted to share what he had created. As the festival began, the villagers danced, sang, and played games. Laughter filled the air, and Jack couldn't help but smile. He joined in, trying his best to learn their dances and games. Everyone welcomed him, treating him like one of their own. After a while, Rilke stepped onto a raised platform, calling for everyone's attention. "Everyone, gather around," she shouted, her voice ringing through the crowd. "We have something special to show you." The villagers turned their heads, curious about what she had planned. Jack felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. He stood beside Rilke, ready to show the defense module. "Today, we celebrate our community, but we also want to prepare for the future," Rilke said. "Jack has been working with us to create something that can help keep our village safe. He will show us how it works." The crowd murmured with interest, and Jack took a deep breath. Rilke stepped back, allowing him to take center stage. He activated the device, and the familiar blue glow enveloped him, creating a protective shield. Gasps of surprise filled the air as the villagers watched in awe. Jack smiled, feeling the energy of the crowd. "This is the defense module," he explained. "It creates a barrier to protect against attacks. It can keep you safe if danger comes." One villager stepped forward, skepticism written on his face. "But how strong is it?" he asked. "What if it fails?" Jack understood the concern. "I will show you," he said confidently. "I can demonstrate it again. Please, throw something at it." He looked around the crowd. "Does anyone have a rock or a stick?" A young boy stepped forward, holding a small stone. Jack nodded and motioned for him to throw it at the shield. The boy tossed the rock with all his strength. It hit the barrier and bounced harmlessly to the ground, just like before. The villagers erupted in cheers, their doubts fading away. Jack felt a rush of pride. "This is just the beginning," he said. "With your help, I can create a larger version that will protect the entire village." Rilke clapped her hands, her smile wide. "Let's all work together. We can build something that will keep us safe and bring us closer as a community." The villagers cheered again, their spirits lifted. Jack felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in a long time. The festival continued, and everyone celebrated, dancing and enjoying the food. As the sun began to set, the sky turned shades of orange and pink. Jack and Rilke sat together, watching the festivities. "Thank you for including me in this," Jack said, his heart full. "I never expected to be part of something so special." Rilke smiled back at him. "You're one of us now, Jack. We're all in this together." She looked around at the happy villagers, and her expression turned serious. "But remember, we still have challenges ahead. We must keep working to ensure our safety." Jack nodded, feeling a sense of responsibility. "I promise I'll do everything I can." Together, we'll make this village stronger." As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Jack knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. The festival had united them, and they would face whatever challenges came their way together. A new friendship. The festival ended late into the night, filled with laughter, music, and the joy of shared stories. Jack felt a warmth in his heart as he joined the villagers in their celebrations. He had never experienced anything like this before. The sense of belonging and friendship was new to him, and he cherished every moment. As the stars twinkled brightly above, Jack and Rilke sat together on a log, watching the other villagers dance around a fire. The flames flickered, casting a warm glow on their faces. "Tonight was incredible," Jack said, smiling at Rilke. "I didn't know I could have so much fun." Rilke laughed softly. "You are part of our family now, Jack. We celebrate together, and we face challenges together." She looked at him, her eyes shining with sincerity. "I'm glad you're here." Jack felt a rush of happiness. "I'm glad to be here too. I never expected to find a place like this." He paused, thinking about everything that had happened since he crashed on this planet. "It feels like I finally belong somewhere." Rilke nodded, understanding his feelings. "Sometimes it takes a long journey to find where you belong. You've brought us hope, and we need that now more than ever." As they talked, a group of children ran past them, laughing and playing games. Jack watched them with a smile. Their carefree laughter reminded him of his childhood, and he felt a pang of nostalgia. "They seem so happy," he said, gesturing toward the kids. "They are," Rilke replied. "They are our future. We must protect them and make sure they grow up safe and strong." She turned to Jack, her expression serious. "This is why your help is so important. With your shield, we can keep them safe from any danger." Jack felt a sense of responsibility wash over him. "I promise I'll do everything I can to help. Together, we can build something that will protect everyone." The next morning, Jack woke up early, filled with energy and determination. He wanted to start working on the larger shield as soon as possible. After breakfast, he gathered the villagers who had offered to help him. They met in the central area, ready to begin their project. "Today, we will start gathering materials," Jack said, addressing the group. "I need your help to collect everything we need to make the shield bigger and stronger. We will also need tools and parts from the village." The villagers nodded, eager to assist. "What do we need?" asked a man named Kiro, who was tall and strong with kind eyes. Jack thought for a moment. "We'll need strong metals, sturdy materials, and anything that can enhance the device. I believe there are parts from old machines that might be useful." He could see the villagers nodding, their enthusiasm growing. Rilke stepped forward, her face determined. "We can search through the old buildings. There are many things left behind from the past that we can use. Let's split into teams and gather what we can find." The villagers quickly organized themselves, forming small groups to search for materials. Jack felt a sense of excitement as he watched everyone work together. They were all united by a common goal, and it inspired him. As the day went on, they found various materials, old metal scraps, broken machines, and even some tools that could be fixed. Jack led one of the groups, showing them how to identify useful parts. They laughed and joked, sharing stories while they worked. In the afternoon, as they took a break, Jack noticed a shy girl watching them from a distance. She was sitting alone, her eyes wide with curiosity. Jack walked over to her, kneeling down to her level. "Hi there. What's your name?" he asked gently. The girl hesitated but then replied softly, "I'm Lyra." "Nice to meet you, Lyra. Why aren't you playing with the others?" Jack asked, noticing her shy demeanor. "I'm not very good at games," she admitted, looking down at her feet. Jack smiled warmly. "You don't have to be good at everything to join in. It's all about having fun and being with friends. Would you like to help us find some materials?" Lyra looked up, her eyes brightening a little. "Really? I can help." "Of course. Everyone can help," Jack said encouragingly. Come on, let's see what we can find together. As they walked back to the group, Lyra slowly began to open up. Jack talked to her about the shield and how important it was to protect the village. He could see her becoming more interested, her curiosity growing. When they returned to the others, Lyra gathered her courage and spoke up. I can help too. I can look for small things that might be useful. Jack smiled proudly at her. That's the spirit, Lyra. Every little bit helps. He felt a sense of joy as he watched her join the other children, her shyness fading away. As the sun began to set, the group had gathered a large pile of materials. Jack looked around, feeling a sense of accomplishment. This is amazing, he said, his voice filled with excitement. We're one step closer to building the shield. Rilke beamed at him, her eyes sparkling with pride. You've inspired everyone, Jack. They see how much you care, and that brings us all together. Jack felt a rush of warmth at her words. He realized that in this short time, he had formed new friendships, not just with Rilke, but with the entire village. They were no longer strangers. They were allies, united by a common goal and a shared future. That night, as he sat by the fire with Rilke, Lyra, and the other villagers, Jack knew that he had found his place. This village had become his home, and the friendships he was building were more precious than anything he had ever known. With hope in his heart, Jack looked toward the future. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, and they would do it as friends.